For over 100 years, Iowa State University Extension and Outreach has been serving Iowans. As our state recovers from COVID-19, we will continue to deliver information and education based on research to help you care for your family, manage stress, and support your community, your business, and your farm. We're here for you now, and we will be for the next 100 years. Together, we will build a strong Iowa.
Hello, everyone. I enjoyed that first video because it's sunny and right now it's a little gloomy. Well, right now it's just red, but I am Leah Feltz, your social media specialist with Iowa State Extension and Outreach, and we're here on another Tips from an Expert. And I am very excited for today's because I feel like I always talk about taking notes, but this is going to be a really good one that I think everybody's going to find value, whether you take away information that benefits you, your family, or other people that you work with, live with, et cetera, et cetera. We are talking about strengthening your mental and physical health. Rumor has it, we're in a stressful time right now. So our guests today are Jody Gatewood. Bring Jody on. Hi, Jody.
Hi.
And Jody's a nutrition program specialist with Extension and Outreach. And Jody, you've been busy since March. You've been becoming like a Facebook star.
Yeah. Over when we were at home, all at home, me and my kids were doing some Fit Fam Fridays, and we did some workout Wednesdays. So yeah.
Yep. And also the rumor mill has it that some more produced, not in your living room, exercise videos are coming down the line too, right?
Yeah, we're going to make some more and get them on our Spend Smart, Eat Smart website. So if you missed them on Facebook, you can get them on Spend Smart, Eat Smart here in the next few months.
Yeah. I think more people would work out if they got paid to do it, so I think you're onto something there. All right, we have another guest with us today too, another expert, David Brown. Hi, David.
How are you?
And he's our behavioral health state specialist with Extension and Outreach. You also have been like incredibly busy since, well, forever, but specifically since we've gone virtual. I feel like you hop off one Zoom virtual meeting and onto the next.
Yeah, it's a difficult time for a lot of folks. So yeah, that keeps us all busy, making sure that everybody has resources and information they need.
Absolutely. So before I hand it over to you guys, I'm going to put the Iowa Concern hotline up on the bottom of the screen. And we try to make sure that this is in front of people as often as possible. Iowa Concern is available 24/7, and it is free. You can call this number and have access to specialists, experts that can help you when life's feeling a little bit hard. And that could be anything, really. There's pretty much nothing you couldn't call them with that they couldn't help you somehow. And I know one thing that's really impressive to me is that they can connect you with some local resources too, specific to you and where you live. So make sure to write that down. They also have language interpretation available. So Iowa Concern, 24/7, free to all. And it's really a great place to go when you're not quite sure what the next step is. All right, so I'm going to hop off And we're going to jump into tips from an expert. First off, I think we have a page that you guys get to tell us a little bit more about yourself. So I get to learn right here.
Well, I guess I'll go. I'm David Brown. I'm the Behavioral Health State Specialist for Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. I'm also a licensed marital family therapist and a certified family life educator. I've been a licensed marital therapist for about 28 years now, almost 30 years. So I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, and I'm Jody Gatewood, and I am a registered dietitian, and I've been a dietitian for about 13 years. I also have a real interest and passion in physical activity and have taught some group fitness classes and have been a personal trainer. And currently with Extension, I focus on families with limited resources. And so do nutrition education and help to support our Bite Live Healthy program, and also work with our Spend Smart Eat Smart website and resources.
Yeah, we're going to review some signs of stress right now. And one of the things I want people to think about is this may not only be for you, but maybe this could be for someone you know that you're worried about. And then you can kind of ask them, maybe we need to get some help about this. So again, think about this for yourself, but also for other people, if it would be friends, family, coworkers as well. But some of the key areas of signs of stress you may think of with individuals, if all those stress chemicals go through our body and flood our body over and over again during very difficult times. But those things can produce headaches, muscle aches, appetite changes, sleep habits, maybe not sleeping enough, or maybe sleeping too much as well, and being fatigued. And you're certainly more prone to illness, and that's not a very good thing to be at this point with a pandemic going on, because that levels of stress does impact our immune system. You also may see some behavioral changes. That is primarily maybe some maladaptive coping strategies that individuals are using to manage stress. Certainly increased drug or alcohol use. You could also see increases in gambling, spending, things like that. But also, when we're under stress, we're not concentrating as well. We may have difficulty making decisions, certainly impacts our productivity, and, we're often forgetful. I know when I get really, really stressed, I forget things all the time. I'll forget my phone at home, things like that. And so that's one of the key areas of signs of stress. It obviously impacts us emotionally. I know I tell people when I get stressed, I get a little bit more grumpy. And so anger and irritability is part of being a clear sign of stress that we need to be aware of. Obviously, some sadness, some being worried or anxious about things, lack of direction, discouraged, being a little bit more discouraged are also emotional signs we need to pay attention to. And certainly our relationships. We know that when we're stressed, we're more prone to get into conflicts with those that are close to us. We may try to avoid friends or not to be around situations that we typically used to enjoy. And certainly some resentment can pop up as we are more stressed. Boundaries are really important, even now, especially with COVID, because I know many of our listeners are probably working from home or have worked from home. And so we really have to set some boundaries to maintain our own well-being and wellness. And one of those boundaries you might want to set are certainly that weekends are sacred. This is my time for me to re-energize. And so you may want to set aside just the weekends just for you and your family. We need to schedule lots of breaks. I know many of us have been working very, very hard during this very, very time to get out resources and things like that. But you need to schedule breaks into your time at work or at home, just so you make sure they happen. And creating a specified workplace is even more important when you're working at home, because you need to have that divine space that's kind of yours. So maybe you can keep the kids out or family members out. And so you have that workspace just for you to maintain your own productivity. And so the others just can't interrupt you when you're meetings or things like that. So you need to have that defined workspace.
Yeah, and so when you think about just that stress, and as David mentioned, the impacts it has on physical well-being, thinking about how we can support our body and take care of it even when we are stressed. And so some things to think about is, just staying hydrated, scheduling water breaks throughout the day, keeping yourself hydrated, getting that water in, and then also planning regular meals and snacks to refresh ourselves, to keep our energy up. I know we're going to talk a little bit later about the effects that stress has on eating. But one of those things is that it can drop your appetite, but that doesn't mean we need to, not eat. We still want to try to, get some food in and maybe take a little bit of stress away by planning those meals and snacks so it's not another stress for you. Some deep breathing, just, taking some deep breaths in. One way you can do that is try the 4-7-8 deep breathing. So you're breathing in for a count of 4, and you hold it for 7, and then exhale slowly on a count of 8, just to help kind of relax your cells and your muscles and just provide a little bit of relaxation in a simple way, no matter where you're at. Another way to do some muscle relaxation is just to tighten your muscles one at a time, kind of focusing, maybe from the head to the toe, and then just relaxing them and just being able to sit for a bit with relaxed muscles. I know as I sit at the computer and are on meetings, I kind of get a lot of stress in my shoulders. And so this is a way to help just relieve some of that stress. And again, one of those disruptions that David mentioned is maybe not sleeping enough. And so just making sure that we are scheduling sleep and just, telling ourselves that we are going to go to bed and not just spend more time trying to get more done, but, making it a habit to get to bed and really blocking those interruptions, maybe keeping that cell phone out of the bedroom so that you're not interrupted by that. So all of these tips, can help to get into that routine. So it's one less thing to think about, but just have that routine and helps us stay healthy as we head into the flu season and continue to be concerned about the coronavirus.
Yeah, both Jody and I have already mentioned, the importance of sleep. And some of these tips here are important to think about because, we can actually train our body and mind to be ready to sleep. And so, for example, if we have a going to bed ritual every night that we follow, that tells our body and brain that it's time to go to sleep. And so that could include, maybe some light reading, listening to some nice music or some relaxing music, things like that. But it's really just like children, adults need to have kind of a going to bed ritual. Similarly, we don't want you to have use your bed as an office because that confuses the body and brain. The body and brain don't know if you're supposed to be active and alert or go to bed or go to sleep. So again, we have to make sure that our bed is just used for sleeping. And I want to also go back to number 5, which is if you wake up in the middle of the night and can't get to sleep, get out of bed and restart your going to bed ritual. Again, the bed is not for tossing and turning, it's for sleeping. So if you're just tossing, turning, get up and restart your bedtime ritual. Other things that may help is certainly get some exercise during the day. You want to make sure your body's a little fatigued and ready for bed. Don't take long naps because long naps can disrupt the sleep cycle. Short 15-minute to even a half-hour power naps have been found not to impact the sleep cycle as much, but don't take long naps. And certainly limit alcohol and caffeine. Now, sometimes individuals may take a little alcohol before they get, before bed to help kind of wind down the day. But actually, it was found that actually interrupts the sleep during the middle of the night and actually limits the amount of quality of sleep that we have. And certainly caffeine, we want to try to avoid that at least 6 hours before you're going to bed.
And David, I would also mention, just before I talk a little bit more about eating, you mentioned not using it as your office. And I would also think, if kids are learning from home, to not use their bed as school, because my son wants to lay on his bed and do it. And I think about that tip that you gave. And I said, it's not good for you to be, for one, his posture I don't think is good because he's laying, looking at his laptop. But I also think for kids, making sure that they realize that they really should be sitting maybe at a table or a desk and not using their bed for schoolwork as well.
Yeah, exactly. For exactly the same reason, because it really confuses us whether or not we're supposed to be going to sleep there or being alert there. So yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so when we think about our eating, things to think about. And as we mentioned in the beginning that, stress can affect our eating. When we're initially stressed and maybe have that initial onset, our body releases adrenaline and that can suppress our appetite. And so then you might not feel hungry. As I mentioned, some people, aren't hungry when they're stressed and maybe forget to eat or don't eat. But the longer that the stress stays around, our body releases cortisol. And that is known as the stress hormone. And so that cortisol can really affect our eating. And one thing that it can do is, one, it can increase our appetite. And so then we maybe are craving lots of things, or we have a bigger appetite. And it also affects what we are craving. And so we tend to crave sugary, saltier, fattier foods when we're stressed. And that's the effect of the cortisol. And so one thing just to remember is, again, as we think about eating, when we think about maybe being healthy or eating healthier, we're told to limit the sugary, the saltier, the fatty foods. But just remember that it's okay to eat those things sometimes. I know when the pandemic started, there was a lot more chips and ice cream in my house than we normally have. They just, with that stress. And so don't make it one more thing to be stressed about if you are eating that. But then again, just going back to, planning ahead for your meals and snacks, keeping those fruits and vegetables around. So you might have some chips with your lunch, but maybe you're also having some carrot sticks. And so it's kind of a balance. But just know that that is your body's one way of handling that stress. And so thinking about meals and snacks, I would encourage you to check out our Spend Smart, Eat Smart website through Extension. We have lots of great, simple, easy recipes, inexpensive. So that's one place to look. And we also talk about, how to plan for your meals and snacks. Also, just be mindful when you are eating. I think it's very tempting if we're, sitting at our computers or sitting in front of the TV, to just kind of do some of that mindless munching, but really to be mindful when you're eating. And in my house, we eat in the kitchen. So we're not eating in the living room. We're not eating in bedrooms because when we eat, we are to sit down and focus, on our eating and enjoy what we're eating. And that just helps to limit that, kind of mindless snacking where you kind of maybe don't even realize that you're eating because it's really not being enjoyed. And then also, can't stress it enough to just get moving. And that just, again, if you are feeling hungry, can maybe spur your appetite. So you are feeling hungry to eat a little bit because we do need to stay nourished. And it can also help to just relieve some of that stress.
Well, Jody, I'm bummed because I really like my corn chips in the evening, and that's kind of one of my addictions is corn chips right before I go to bed. So I'll have to change that strategy. There's some this has been a really difficult time, and there's a lot of kind of sensational news out there regarding the COVID, and you hear about all the deaths and things like that. And obviously, this can stress out children as well. So it's really important to take time to talk to your children and reassure them things are going to be okay. Our family is going to be okay, because they're hearing some really negative things. Certainly, they know how it's impacting them going to school and things like that. So reassuring them things will be okay is going to be really important. Obviously, with all the sensational news out there, it's really important to limit your child's exposure to the media, or maybe just once or twice a week, talk a little bit about what's going on, but try to limit the media exposure and social media as well. Even if your child is homeschooled or in some type of modified program, we need to still maintain a routine as best as possible. Children really respond to a nice routine. It makes things predictable. And the more predictable things are, typically the less stressed they can be. So we really like to maintain a routine as best as possible. And be a role model. You need to maintain your own routine. You need to try to minimize the limit and manage your own stress and be a role model for your children as well. And following all these rules, just like you children will be following them as well.
So along with keeping our bodies nourished and thinking about how we stress affects our eating habits. Another thing to think about is just, again, as we've mentioned, physical activity, and a great way to do that is outside, getting in nature. So a University of Michigan study showed that 20 minutes outdoors can drop those cortisol levels in adults by over 20%. And that's pretty significant. In a fairly small amount of time, you can really do something to drop those stress hormones. And so I know it's going to get cold here in Iowa. We've been pretty warm so far. But even when it does get colder, to just think about how you can bundle up and, get some time outside, if it's a walk during your lunch break or, after school, just trying to get out in nature to help get some movement and to help relieve some stress. There was also a study with some college students that showed that as little as 10 minutes in nature can increase happiness and reduce, again, both that physical and mental stress. And so just seeing the benefits of being able to get outside. And I think with the pandemic, outside is one area that they would encourage us to be, right? Out in that fresh air. And so just trying to get outside wherever that might be. Maybe, one away from other people, but, are there trails? Are there parks? And I think, that last bullet there, lower, no cost experiences outdoors. And here in Iowa, we have our county conservation locations, our county parks, are some great ways to get outside and to enjoy and help reduce some of that stress.
Yeah, I'm just going to read through some ideas to support your family. Now, one of the things, we need to talk about is how do we set boundaries between, work and family. And again, after a long day of work, you may want to just listen to some favorite music to kind of have a little downtime. Sometimes individuals have a commute back and forth. That's a good time to do that. And that's really difficult to maintain boundaries between work and home when sometimes work and home are the same place. And so, again, we want to try to set as many boundaries as possible to protect your family time from your work time. Things that couples can do together. We have here, we moved down to number 5 because we have plan a monthly date night. And again, that's really important to maintain the relationship. But some things that couples can do can be joint physical activities, or maybe it's just taking a walk together. Could be your date for that night. Or you can involve the whole family as well. But for couples, getting out to walk together, I know we can't maybe not go to those restaurants or things like that. It's still important to have a date night just for the couple together. And certainly being lighthearted in the midst of a tense conversation can help calm us down. Sometimes we also need a time out, like the kids, and we need maybe 20 minutes to just say, hey, I don't want to talk anymore. I need a kind of little break from the conversation, and take yourself away for about 20 minutes. And that takes the amount of time that the stress chemicals start leaving the body at that time and pre-process out of the body. So give yourself about a 20-minute break and then come back and discuss it a little bit later. And obviously, we want to encourage families to think positively about their lives. We need to appreciate the things that are going well in our lives, because in difficult times like a pandemic, it's hard, sometimes easy to see the bad things that are going on in our world. And we really need to go back and refocus on all the good things that are happening as well. And that makes us, just feel better as a family and as individuals as well. Action steps, and we talked a little bit about this before. Certainly, all of us, children, parents, families, members, limiting media, social media. And I even did an article about how to manage the election stress, and the same kind of recommendation went there. Limit your focus on media and social media, just because there's a lot of things that aren't going well out there. We need to kind of focus on, and maybe only schedule looking at our media once a day, or even once every 2 or 3 days to catch up. But try to limit media and social media. And consistently engage in others. One of the main stressors of this pandemic is the isolation that we're feeling from other individuals. And that isolation puts us at risk for a variety of different types of stress. So consistently engage with others. Maybe make a phone call to a friend you haven't talked with a while. Parents, whatever, call someone you haven't talked with a while. Maybe an elderly neighbor, call and check on them. Do some good things with that, checking on people that may be having a hard time getting groceries, things like that. But we really need to consistently engage with others, even if it may be via Zoom call or things like that. And again, maintain that sense of hope and optimism and appreciation for all the things that are going well in your life. And by doing that, we can hopefully make it through this pandemic and certainly come out better at managing our stress, and know how to do a better job at managing our stress.
All right, so a few resources that you guys have already mentioned, but we'll draw a little extra attention to. First off, this is just a quick screenshot of what you might find if you head over to kind of the home base for Human Sciences with Extension and Outreach. And as you can see, there's all kinds of tabs you can click on for family, food, finance, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to put this link that would take you to the homepage. Also on this homepage, you're going to find a lot of resources directly relating to the pandemic. Also, other resources are AnswerLine, which is a phenomenal tool for any home or family questions. I may or may not have called them once to ask if I could reheat coffee in a styrofoam cup because I wasn't actually sure. And I didn't trust Google, or a search engine telling me. Like, I wanted to know, like, research-wise, like, is there anything I should be scared of? Or I called them another time when I was going to make a freezer meal from a normal recipe, and I didn't know if I needed to, like, add more liquid, less, like, I don't know. I was just like, I don't want to make this decision on my own, and I can't read through 5 people's blog posts about their grandma's meatloaf before I find this answer. So went straight to Answerline and got it. So we're going to throw Answerline in there. Iowa Concern, and like Jody mentioned a couple times, Spend Smart, Eat Smart, one of my favorite places to get new recipes that are, I'm not a cook. It's not one of my strengths, but I can make these and they're good. My kids eat them. So some of the big resources there. And then let's hop into the Q&A. So as I'm like putting these links here in the chat, again, I want to thank you guys for sharing this with us because I just can't tell you how valuable it is. And I don't know how you guys have handled the pandemic, drought, derecho, election, all of these things. But it has felt like a roller coaster, and I don't think I'm buckled. I don't think I put the safety harness on. Like my neck hurts a little bit. But yeah, I mean, have you guys felt the ups and the downs? Like you're doing good, you're not doing good? Like, what are you feeling as the experts?
Well, it just seemed like a lot of things happened all at once, and I know just for me personally, it means I'm working more, and my wife and I have to make special effort to have time together, go out to eat together, and things like that. So we really have to be a little bit more planful about our time together and what we're going to do that's enjoyable. It could be Christmas shopping in downtown Ames. It was a fun day that we had together doing things like that. So it's just, you really need to be more planful about how you're going to manage your stress and do the things to keep yourself well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling it. I have 2 young children, a 1st grader and a 5th grader. And here in Ames, where I live, they're in hybrid. So we're doing some homeschooling, school at home a few days a week. And so that's just an added thing. And so, yes, I'm definitely feeling it. And I just, remind myself to give myself grace and that, as somebody that likes routine, I need to just let go of my routine. I mean, David said to keep my routine, but I guess, just finding that different routine or just giving myself a little bit of grace when it maybe doesn't go as well as I would have liked.
That's very good advice. And I actually am someone that does typically really well without a routine. And I've had to force myself to have one because I had, like I needed something to cling to. I read something the other day that made me laugh really hard. And it was like, this pandemic has lasted so long, I got in shape and out of shape again. And I was like, I really relate to that. Okay, let's get to a few questions. So what are some of the main causes of stress? We talked about some symptoms you might see, but what are some things that can trigger, these symptoms that you might be feeling or noticing in your life?
Stress is simply, a response to some type of challenge, certainly it's with the pandemic, certainly working from home, all the different changes we've had to experience, working from home, kids working from home, not being able to see our loved ones, not getting together in groups and having the social isolation is certainly a main cause of stress. We also know there's going to be some economic implications of the pandemic. And so people may be losing their job, maybe going from full-time to part-time. We know some folks are struggling to paying their rent and things, mortgage. And so, there's just a lot of stress that is being produced by the pandemic. And some of it's very major stress. We also know that there could be a spike in suicides due to the COVID. So again, all these things that Jody and I talked about are really need to focus on in a very planful way because of the stress levels out there.
Yeah, I love that you keep referring to that plan. And like you said, Jody, sometimes you make a plan and it doesn't end up going quite how you wanted, but having a plan there gives you something to aim for. And sometimes that's what you need in your day. Some days my plan is to have breakfast and put on pants that aren't elastic. And if I can meet those, I got breakfast and I buttoned up my pants. Like, this is, woo, I made it. And you've set yourself up for an easy win there. Jody, we've got a question that came in for you. This is me. I am interested in this. I can't seem to get motivated to exercise. Any suggestions? I know I should be doing it. We all do.
Yeah.
We just can't quite get there.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is that when people think they need to exercise, they think of going to a gym. They think of like, I have to do it for 30 minutes. I have to do it for an hour, like 10 minutes. That's what I would say is really start to create the habit, because then when it's a habit, it's kind of that routine. So can your routine be okay, when I get up in the morning, I'm going to do 10 minutes. And so I really think of breaking it down into smaller amounts, because I think people automatically go to, I got to work out for 30 minutes. I got to work out, but really it's, do I have 10 minutes? Can I get on a treadmill if you have access to that? Can I go outside for 10 minutes? Can I walk some stairs? And so I think that helps. And then also maybe just a buddy, we talked about connection. And so maybe you're talking to a friend that needs accountability, so maybe you can't get together to do it, but maybe you can talk on the phone or something like that, so that you, are doing something else. If being physically active isn't your most favorite thing, when you're talking with somebody, maybe it just helps the time go by a little bit faster. But like I said, I think the first thing is what you envision exercise as. And as you hear me say, I say movement or physical activity, because I think just how we phrase it can make a difference as well.
That's good.
And exercise is such a great way to relieve and manage stress too. So that's a huge, great suggestions from Jody.
I wonder if there's been an uptick in like punching bags from people just needing to like get a little bit of the rage out there. No one else can see it, but I saw it as we were talking about doing those small decisions in your day. Our video producer used her standing desk and stood up. And so, shout out to Jordan. You guys, she's the unsung hero of these tips from expert. But yeah, and that's actually something I've done when I'm working from home is I've literally used my laptop and used it at my kitchen counter for a little while instead of my makeshift desk area, just to stand up, just to get myself out of that chair. You guys talked about too, not having your workspace in your bedroom. In my first 3 months of the pandemic, I was in the corner of my bedroom. And at some point it dawned on me that maybe waking up and seeing my computer and falling asleep seeing my computer was not a good mental health thing for me. But I do let my kids do their work in their room on their virtual days. And so that was when I thought, ooh, we got to figure something else out. What are some foods I should eat to support my immune system? We're running into some interesting months ahead with flu season and on top of everything else, what should we be eating to help?
Yeah, well, I think, we often hear vitamin C, for immunity. And so, your fruits and vegetables, we want to get in that. But I really think the focus should be on just a balance. And so when we think of my plate, it's, half your plate is fruits and vegetables. So if that can kind of be a goal of just thinking about, making fruits and vegetables a part of each, meal and snack. A little bit of grains, maybe in a fourth of your plate, and thinking of whole grains, so whole wheat breads, brown rices, and then a fourth of your plate being some sort of protein, if that's meat or plant, if it's beef or pork or chicken or beans, peanut butter. So like I said, I think if you can really focus on half your plate being fruits and vegetables, that's kind of the mantra. And I think also thinking about different kinds of fruits and vegetables. Oftentimes, I think people think it has to be fresh. Well, in Iowa, our fresh produce is not around very much anymore. And so, that the frozen, the canned, even some dried, so just, I think just focusing on how you might get in those fruits and vegetables, but it doesn't have to be fresh, because I think some people also think that's expensive, or if they don't eat it, it goes bad. So it can be in different forms, and then just kind of trying to get a balance. So when you envision your plate, half of it should be fruits and vegetables, a fourth of it some sort of protein, a fourth of it some grains, and then some sort of dairy, if it be milk or cheese. So that's what I would encourage people to think about.
David, she did not mention corn chips.
Yeah, I was waiting. I was hoping, but that didn't show up.
No, I was like, but corn, so you kind of get your grain. I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna say you can have
yeah.
that as your little bit of your grain if you like.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
She's the expert. She says so. I heard her.
with chili. Like we like corn chips with chili. That's what we like to eat it with too.
You know, I am born and raised in Iowa, and I cannot get behind the cinnamon rolls with chili.
We actually had that the
I can't
other
do
night. My son heard about that because that is not something I often. Well, I don't
No.
know rolls, but he heard about this, and I'm like, yeah. When I grew up in school, like
Yeah.
when I grew up in Western Iowa, we did have cinnamon rolls. So we did have a special little cinnamon roll treat with our chili the other day.
I don't know. Cornbread. We do cornbread, which.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of that, what's some good comfort foods going into some chillier weather? Speaking of chillier weather, any good comfort foods? And maybe I'm even wondering any good Spend Smart Eat Smart recipes I could look up real quick.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do think soups. I love making soups. That's one of my favorite things. And so sometimes I think those can be a comfort food. And so if it be some types of chili, I know on Spend Smart Eat Smart we have a Mexican chicken soup that is black beans and corn and chicken. We have some chili recipes. We have a lentil. We have a pork one. So I think some of those, and I really think of like casseroles. Some people may or may not like those or might think those are comfort foods, but I think they can fit in. You can get the balance of if you're having some pastas and some grains and those types of things. And I think that the thing too, when we think about comfort foods is, just eat them and enjoy some and not feel guilty because, it also has to do with the portion that you eat. And sometimes I think when we feel some guilt about it, we overeat them, where if you just enjoyed them and moved on. But yeah, some of my favorite Spend Smart Eat Smart recipes. We have a tamale pie on there. You mentioned cornbread.
Barb jumped in and just said, and I looked it up right away. I was like, ooh, tamale pie.
It's one of my favorites, but it does have a cornbread topping. That's one of my favorites. They also have lentil tacos. So people that might like some more plant-based protein, I really like our lentil tacos. Like I said, the Mexican chicken soup recipe I really like. Right now, thinking of snacks, I don't know if anybody is, when the pandemic first started and maybe now, but when we were all home, talking about like my kids ask me every 5 minutes if there was a snack. We have something called Energy Bites. And so it's got peanut butter and chocolate chips and oatmeal, coconut, some chia seeds. And so I just actually made a batch this weekend, and I think they're almost gone because I'm pretty sure my children eat like 3 or 4 at the time. But they're just kind of a little sweet treat that you can have.
Yeah, and I just pulled up that recipe right now, and it's like all the instructions. It's like mixed together, put them out in little spoonfuls and refrigerate. Like those are things my kids, even my youngest, who's 5, could very easily help with all of that. And I know he's much more likely to eat something that's good for him if he had an actual hand in making it. So yeah, no, I added to the comments the Spend Smart Eat Smart recipe direct link because man, my mouth's watering. I just looked at the Energy Bites and I'm done. Yeah, Barb, our good friend Barb. She's all that tamale pie. She's for the one. I haven't tried that one, so I'm going to try that one.
Yep, it's pretty popular. I really like it.
Yeah. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Oh, here we go, David. So what are some, and I think you already mentioned a couple, but maybe you've got some more, some good date night ideas on a budget. And I'm even wondering, as having 3 kids at home, but, we're not bringing in babysitters like we would have used to do. So even things, what are some maybe at home or some low cost date night ideas that would be good for you and your partner?
Well, I know certainly when the weather was better, or even, we had some great weather the last few weeks, was just getting out for a walk. I mean, I love going out for a walk with my wife, and that's one of my favorite things to do. But other date nights is, you could go, you don't have to do shopping. You can do window shopping. You just walk around the mall together. That doesn't cost anything to do some window shopping. We've been doing a lot of just going out and getting some food and bringing it home. And, it doesn't have to be expensive food. It could be just to, like the local burger joint. And bring that home and have that together, or you could just rent a movie and watch a movie. due to a Netflix or something like that. We
Yeah.
watched. My wife and I watched a really nice Christmas movie the other night, and we just sat down and tried to get us in the Christmas mood, and so we watched a Christmas movie together.
Yeah.
And so now the one thing I do to say, my daughters are grown, so it's just my wife and I at home, and so a little bit easier for us to go on dates without having to worry about finding babysitters or things
Yeah.
like that.
My husband and I tried a date night, like an in-home date night, and it didn't last very long. We were downstairs trying to watch a movie, and the kids were upstairs, and it wasn't long before we had one on the lap, one kind of peeking down the stairs. It's like, okay, family time.
Yeah.
But yeah, we try to connect, even if it's everybody's in bed. And but actually that has me thinking, is there a good question like to engage with your partner, or maybe it's not your partner, but just another adult, like a good check-in question. I'm not always good at, a lot of times it's like, how was your day? And that's so open-ended. Like, what are some good questions that we can engage with our friends or partners checking in?
Well, I like how was your day, because that is open-ended, and I like open-ended questions like that, and it kind of speeds up the conversation, and so people can kind of talk a little bit about things that went on, and so as long as you're using a kind of open-ended questions, so something that doesn't get you just a yes or no. I think anytime you use that, you're going to be a good way to kind of open up a conversation about things.
Then the good old how was your day is standby.
That might work just fine, as long as it opens up a conversation and can't be answered yes or no.
There you go. That's a good. Okay, let's see if we've gotten through our questions. Another one that I think is important to touch on, I think probably for physical and mental health both, at what point is someone, potentially going to need to make a phone call and talk to a physician or a counselor, or the next step?
One of the things I would start looking for, obviously, if you're having difficulty sleeping or sleeping too much, if you're maybe showing some physical signs, maybe digestive problems, that could be a sign. If you're just feeling a little hopeless or down and it just doesn't go away, sometimes we all have bad days, but if let's say you're feeling just down for over 2 weeks or more, then those are some signs you probably need to maybe talk to your physician. We also know that there's a lot of physical issues that kind of show up as depressive type symptoms. So, always going to get a physical is probably a good thing. If you're seeing some signs and symptoms that last more than 2 weeks, sleeping too much, being really, really down, not enjoying activities that you used to, not wanting to be with friends, if that goes on longer than 2 weeks, it's time to maybe see your physician. Would be a good place to start.
That's good. It gives you something to keep track of if you start noticing it's more, 1 day, 2 day, and then you start that out. That's good.
Kind of the gold standard's 2 weeks. We want if the symptoms continue for 2 weeks, then it's probably time for you to talk to someone.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've kind of hit on most of our comments, and I have put a lot of links in the chat. I've tried to kind of title them, so hopefully as people are viewing this later this evening or even later this week, that people can access the documents that will support what they're wanting to know a little bit more about. If you're watching this later after the live's ended, you can still add any questions or comments into the chat. You can also message our page if it's a question you'd like to hear from Jody or David, and I'll make sure that those questions get to them and that you can get an answer. We have so many resources available to you through a lot of the links in the comments, but again, what I want to put on the screen is the Iowa Concern phone number. Again, this phone number is available 24/7. It is free. There's language interpretation available as well, and it's just a good starting point if you're experiencing something that feels a little more than you can take on and you want to know what help there is. Dr. David Brown and Jody's emails are now both on the screen, so you can actually directly reach out to them. Some other things to follow us on Facebook, which if you're watching this, you might already be following us. Also, Spend Smart, Eat Smart. Jody's got live videos. They post recipes. All kinds of great information can be posted there. Spend Smart, Eat Smart is also on Twitter, as well as our main extension page, and we're on Instagram as well. one thing that I was going to note too about our Facebook page is that we have a bunch of events that are upcoming and some that will continue to be added as they get closer to the dates. But David, your name's on a lot of these upcoming virtual events. One I just saw yesterday, managing loneliness and isolation in a pandemic. And, you know, again, I'm married with kids, so I sometimes don't get enough alone time. However, there's plenty of people that have gotten way too much alone time. So I saw that coming up.
And that program is by some of our staff members who are working for the COVID Recovery Iowa Project. Mm-hmm. And so they're doing weekly programs related to issues that were being seen on COVID recovery. And that's certainly isolation and loneliness due to social isolation, that we're not being able to see many folks, is a big part of some of the stress that people are saying. So that's why the loneliness presentation is there.
Yes. So again, that's you're going to find a lot of events as they continue to be added. David, Jody, all of our specialists are continuing to see what is happening, what your reality is, and then they're matching the research with it. I have found so much value for myself, my kids, my spouse. My stomach has enjoyed a lot of the research coming out of Spencer Eatspark. We value you guys so much, and yeah, I really hope that we have reached some people with some good information that hopefully can help strengthen mental and physical health a little bit more, help with some of the stress of this odd year that we've been in. Thank you guys again for joining. We're gonna call it a day. Again, any additional questions, comments, anything like that, you can still add to the chat and we'll make sure to get back to you. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.